This old guy DIY video has to do with putting Cognito upper control arms on a Yukon XL 2500 from 2004 that belongs to a buddy of mine. So we watched a couple of YouTube videos, read the instructions. Looks like it's a pretty straightforward process. Told him that the upper control arm was failed on the driver's side, so there was no sense doing an alignment. So since that was the case, he went to the Cadillac Cognitos, and we'll put those in here shortly. And he's going to run over, get the thing aligned, and see how it rides from there. So the Cognito upper control arms come with a ball joint assembly in a bag, and then all the hardware is in a bag. So I just took these things and put them in by hand first. Then I grabbed my little Milwaukee impactor and a 1/2 inch socket, held a 1/2 inch open end on the other side, and just tighten these things up. So in the name of science, we're checking a few things here. From the ground to the edge of the wheel well is 38.5, and then from the wheel well to the top of the tire right now is 7 3/8 in the stock condition, stock with the keys cranked. So now we're going to throw those Cognito arms in, see what difference that makes. Now we're measuring what it looks like with the tire hanging, and it's a whopping 7.5. So there's only about an 1/8 inch of drop there, but you see the tire's loose, hanging in the air, 7.5 inches before the change. All right, we got the driver's side upper control arm out. This is what the OEM unit looks like, and that's the one that Pip Boy said was failed. So I suspect some of these bushings are shot. So we got it out, and the new Cognito unit does not require any grease on the bushings or on the ball joint. And when it comes with the kit, it gives you these little nuts and bolts, and it's supposed to be torqued to 22 foot-pounds. So we're going to do that here in just a minute, and then we'll install this thing. So as we're putting this thing back together, we have a couple of freelance engineering deals. The little Christmas tree on this clip had broken off in the course of removal. So we put the screw that's in the arm back here just as a stopper for this big zip tie. Since the part is wider here and narrower back here, that zip tie would tend to want to walk. So we just use that screw as a stopper, put this big zip tie around the existing clip, and that all seems fine for the ABS. Then when it came to the brake line, the hole in the Cognito is down here on the bottom. So this is the bracket that was on the old control arm. So I just measured 1 inch from the back. I drilled this little hole, and we're going to put the provided 10mm bolt in from the bottom, and that's how that thing's going to be. So this is what our install looks like. These things are 90 foot-pounds. We'll be taking them over to Belle Tire here shortly. So 90 pounds here. They say to center the pin in the cams for the drive to your alignment shop. And after you do this, go get it aligned right away, or you risk losing a lot of rubber on your tires. And then the castle nut down here is torqued to 90 foot-pounds also. So we have that thing in. And when you go and install this into this piece, it said if the castle nut does not engage when the pin goes through it, add another washer or two. So they provided 4 extra washers, and in our case we ended up with a stack of 3 washers there to get the castle nut centered on the cotter key. That's what it looks like. Now we'll put her back together and do some measurements. Here we are after installation of the Cognito upper control arm, and you can see when it's just hanging free, there's now 9.5 inches between the top of the tire and the fender. With the old control arm, it was 7.5 inches. Let me spin that tire a little bit. You can see the tire is spinning free. We have a jack stand under the frame. So we picked up 2 inches of droop as a result of putting this control arm in. We're working on the passenger side now, and to briefly describe how the process works, come in here, take a little 10mm, take this line off the brake line. There's a 10mm that goes to this thing up on top, and then pull out the ABS clip from the arm here. Once you have all that stuff done, come and take the castle nut off. It's either an 18mm or a 3/4 inch will do it. There's so little clearance here that we ended up using a box end wrench and just bringing that out without using a ratchet or anything. And then up here on top, we learned from the other side, just put one of those little wobbler adapters on the impact gun, reach in there and shoot those, and they come off easy. And the other thing we learned on the other side is that these bolts were worn. I'll take a picture of those in just a minute, but they've been worn out over the years, so we went and bought new bolts, and it's all pretty straightforward now. In the course of this excellent learning by doing adventure, when we pulled the bolts out that held the control arm, you can see how that thing is kind of worn down just uphill from the threads there. So we went and got some new bolts. They have a different profile, and we replaced all four. They're worn to different degrees. The part we used was Dorman 13512, and that appears to be the right bolt for a Chevy Suburban 2500 or Yukon XL.
Well, we got the Belle Tire. 6 out of 8 of the readings were out, but the tech said, hey, you guys did a pretty good job for putting in some Cognito A-arms with no help. So now it's time to pay the price and get it aligned correctly.
Well, we took the vehicle in for the alignment, and this top one shows what we had done just freelancing, trying to set it in the middle of the range to drive the 18 miles to Belle Tire. And here on the bottom is where we ended up driving out of there after the guy had done his work. So my buddy bought the $100 alignment with a $40 kicker that allows you to get as many alignments as you want to in the next 12 months. Now, when it came to this control arm job, when my buddy was explaining it to me, it really didn't make sense. I didn't understand what actually happens to the vehicle when you crank the keys. But when we did the test and saw that there was only a 1/4 inch of downward travel for that tire when we had the stock control arms on there, it made sense why this thing rode like a milk truck. And after putting those Cognito upper control arms in, the thing now has 2 inches of travel to the downside before it's limited. So just driving home from the alignment place, we could feel a difference. And again, I didn't realize that basically when you crank the keys all the way, then he had this thing so it was 39 inches to the fender well. But with the keys all the way cranked, there's absolutely no travel to the downside. So basically, if you hit a pothole or hit some kind of variation in the road, the entire corner of the truck has to drop because the suspension doesn't have any room to go down by itself without taking the truck with it. So I learned a little bit. We had an adventure cutting out a couple of the bolts, but overall, I think it's mission accomplished. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.